Hi guys, today I want to take you through the process of how to properly winterize an outboard motor. Now the winterization process is really about preparing your boat and outboard for a period of extended sit. You may be down south and not using your boat for a period of time, but where I live in the northern part of the United States, our winters are long and our lakes are frozen. So there are some specific steps that we're going to take with this engine to ensure that the internal components are ready for that sit period, as well as the fuel that's in the fuel tank and the fuel system leading up to the engine. Let me take you through the process. Before you start any maintenance tasks, be sure to refer to your owner's manual, as it'll have specific instructions for your motor. See your outboard owner's manual for guidance on the exact supplies and tools specific to your motor, but in general, the winterization supplies list includes engine oil, an engine oil filter, fuel stabilizer, fuel filter, spark plugs, marine grease, fogging oil, gear lube and pump, rust inhibitor spray, basic hand tools, a grease gun, spark plug gap tool, motor flushing muff and garden hose, prop wrench or appropriate socket, a funnel, and a waste oil container. As far as the tools for the job, just have a good variety of sockets and wrenches as well as some screwdrivers. Before I get into the winterization process, the first thing I like to do is thoroughly clean the boat. So I run it through a pressure washer, and I'll also take a product like this all-in-one cleaner and get the cowl nice and clean. I'm gonna thoroughly coat any area that has some of these stubborn spots, and I really like this product because it will remove any of these hard water spots, both on the boat itself and keeping your cowl nice and clean. So I'm just letting that soak for a few seconds, and then, with a clean rag, just start wiping it off. One of the most important steps for a winterization process is to properly treat your fuel. This is going to be sitting for an extended period of time, and what happens is breakdown of that fuel, resulting in gum and varnish buildup. So in order to prevent that, we like to use a fuel stabilizer. This particular product is the Mercury Quick Store Fuel Stabilizer.
1 ounce treats 5 gallons of gas.
And it'll treat your fuel for up to 2 years. So
I have about 20 gallons of fuel in this tank right now, so I'm going to pour in around 4 ounces.
The next step is to run this motor for 5 to 10 minutes. We prefer to do this on the water, a final outing of the season, but if you need to, you can also use a garden hose and engine muffs. Just make sure to be in a well-ventilated area. 2 essential steps for a proper winterization are to perform a 100-hour maintenance on your outboard. This is a 75 horse 4-stroke, and what you'll notice here is I have an oil change kit that has the oil filter, the proper amount of oil, as well as a drain hose to do that. And the gear lube kit comes with everything you need as well. And for the sake of time, I'm going to refer you to the Mercury website and YouTube channel for your particular outboard, where they walk through how to do that in detail. The important reason for changing your oil is if you had any water or moisture buildup within the crankcase, as well as just combustion residue at the end of the year, you want to get that stuff out of there and bring fresh oil into your engine. And part of that process means running the motor after you've changed that oil, just to make sure there's no leaks coming from anywhere, and then that fresh oil is circulated. And similar to changing your engine oil, you also want to change your gear lube. The reason for changing your gear lube, similar to the engine, is if you did have moisture accruing within this gear case, that could potentially freeze in the winter. The gear lube in your outboard lower unit needs to be changed every 100 hours or once a season. So just check your owner's manual. What I like too is these outboards also come with a QR code at the top of the engine cowl, so you can scan it with your phone and it'll pull up that information for you, as well as instructional videos on how to complete that maintenance task. So after I change my gear lube, I like to just, since I'm in this region, take a look at the entire lower unit. So I'm going to inspect that skeg as well as the prop for any damage that may have occurred. I'm going to run my fingers over all these blades. Just a little nick in stainless steel can affect the running performance of your boat. So the off season is a great time to fix anything here, both cosmetically or structurally with the prop. But then we need to remove this prop and take a look at the prop shaft. And I can't overstate that enough. I've had it happen to me when I've removed the prop that there's been fishing line wrapped up underneath. And this happens without you even knowing most of the time. So it's a great time of the year to do this. And I'll do it a few times throughout the course of the open water season, but what it can do is compromise that propeller shaft seal, which can result in water intrusion into the actual gear case. And that's where you run into problems if you were to put it into storage in a freezing environment and potentially crack that gear case. So this is an essential step. They make prop wrenches that work excellent for this application. You can also use a socket set if you have the appropriate size socket. I'm going to put a block of wood in here, a chunk of 2x4 that I have, and they also make prop stops, which are quite convenient as well. And just refer to your owner's manual on how to remove your prop. It's pretty basic. There's some little eared tabs at the back that I straightened out first with a flat screwdriver. And then I actually like to have some gloves on for this step because I'm gonna use some marine grease and re-grease this prop shaft. So if you're kind of new to your hub, I just like to keep it fully intact, or if I do disassemble it, just to lay it out in the order in which it was installed. So what I'm gonna do here is pull this thrust washer off. Again, taking note of the orientation, set that down, and then I'm just gonna inspect that prop shaft. So what I'm doing now is I'm just cleaning up or removing some of that old marine grease, and I'm just gonna apply a fresh coating. And I'm just taking note to look in the seal here. I like to get a rag in there as well, wipe that around and just visually inspect that seal. And then I like to keep a bottle of this marine grease on me, usually in the boat throughout the season. And I always keep some in the garage. And then I just apply some to the cutouts in the prop shaft here, all the way around. And then I'll spread it around with my finger a little bit more and on the threads for the prop nut. And then I'll reinstall the thrust washer first. And then my prop hub is already installed within the prop, so I'm just reinserting it onto the prop shaft. And with the threads, and the threads have a fresh coating as well of the marine grease, so installs nice and easy. I'm just gonna reverse my socket set now, and then start the tightening process. And then after the prop nut is tight, I'm gonna use a flat screwdriver and just bend those ears back up. And that just prevents this from coming loose. Good to go. Since I'm down here, I'm just gonna take a look at my sacrificial anodes. They're designed to protect the motor from corrosion that can happen in the water if the metal components are introduced to an electrolyte. Looking at the lower unit here, everything looks good on that. And then moving over to the cavitation plate, I have 2 more anodes, 1 on each side. If they're 50% deteriorated or more, I'm just gonna replace those. And that's an easy process. Again, please refer to the Mercury website or YouTube channel on how to do that. This isn't a required winterization step, but I'm gonna mention it because now is a good time to address cosmetic issues too. So if you have some nicks or dings down here on your lower unit, the gear case or the skeg, you can easily address those with a primer and a spray paint. It requires a little bit of sanding work. Follow the instructions on the can and also refer to the Mercury website and YouTube channel, and then using the primer followed by the spray paint. It's just nice to keep your motor looking new. This motor comes equipped with power trim. And I want to check the hydraulic fluid to make sure that the color is good, meaning that there hasn't been water intrusion, as well as that it's at the proper level. So to do that, I'm going to trim the motor all the way up to the top position here. And then with the slotted screwdriver, I'm just going to come down here and open up the reservoir. Remove that cap. For this step, make sure to check your owner's manual, as the hydraulic trim can be specific to it. So with the cap removed, I'm just gonna take a flashlight here. What I'm looking for is red trim fluid, which it is, and I wanna make sure that it's leveled off. So it's at about the level of the bottom of the opening, which means that it's totally topped off. If it was lower than that, then just simply add some trim fluid. And if you notice any milkiness to the color, that means that there's been some water intrusion, and then you want to go through the process of changing out that trim fluid. All right, all good here. I'm going to reinstall. If there's one common theme to winterization, it's fresh lube. And that applies to the steering system of the boat too. So I like to use marine grease and apply a fresh amount to each Zerk fitting on the outboard steering mechanism. So refer to your owner's manual for a location of those Zerk fittings. So the first one here is on the front of the boat, and that has to do with the tilt here. So I just simply attach it. You got to push it in a little bit, hear it snap, and then start squeezing. And then what you'll notice is you'll get a little bit of lubricant start pushing out here, and that's the fresh lube forcing the old lube out. And similar to some of these other things that we've talked about, such as the engine oil or the gear case, is if there's water intrusion, this is the time where you're expelling that and then bringing fresh lube into these metal steering mechanisms. And then I have two more Zerks on this side. I'm actually gonna change my grease gun to one with a flex nozzle because the angles are a little steep on this one with that fixed. So, there we go. There you can see right there, you can see that fresh marine grease is forcing that old stuff out. For these next steps, we're gonna fog the engine cylinders and coat the power head. So to start, I need to remove the engine cowl. With the cowl off, I like to trim the engine down to make these cylinders a little more accessible. This is a 4-cylinder, and for the sake of demonstration, I'm gonna fog the first cylinder. So to start, I'm just going to remove the plug wire here, and that exposes the spark plug head. And we need to insert our socket into this opening. I'm going to insert my 5/8 inch socket up onto the head of the spark plug. And there I'm firmly seated, and I'm just going to carefully twist to the left. And then from there, I can just go by hand. Just use caution when you're dealing with spark plugs so you don't crack the spark plug itself. All right. You want to change your spark plugs when you have 300 hours on the engine. This engine only has 50 hours on it. We're still going through a full 100-hour maintenance as we've discussed, but these spark plugs are in good shape. If I was using new spark plugs, I would want to verify the gap using a gap tool and follow the manual for the specified gap. But in the case here, we're just gonna apply fogging oil to the inner cylinder. And what that does is it adds some lubrication and protection. It's a hydrophobic spray, so it helps prevent corrosion within that upper cylinder area. So today we're gonna use the storage seal fogging oil, and you can use this in 2 and 4 cycle carbureted and fuel injected engines, and it prevents rust on the internal engine during storage. When it comes to fogging, it's best to do this when the engine is still warm. The boat was recently in the water, so what I'm going to do is insert the straw that's included up into the cylinder and then depress the top button for about 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna do that for the remaining cylinders. Refer to your owner's manual or the placard on the front of your engine for the correct foot-pounds. This particular motor is 20 foot-pounds for the spark plug. It's ideal to use a torque wrench. I don't have one right now, so I'm just going to go easy, make sure it's nice and snug without over-tightening, and then reinstall the spark plug boot. With all the cylinders fogged, the final step is to apply a corrosion inhibitor to the engine block. So basically the metal components on the engine, avoid drive belt systems, ignition, air intake, those types of things. Before applying the corrosion guard, make sure that your engine block is clean of any debris, dust, salt, that type of stuff. And then you can also apply it down here to the lower unit. I could apply it to the bracket here, as well as to the trim motor. So it comes with a little straw for detailed areas, but I'm gonna apply it broadly here to this main engine block. Again, just taking the care to avoid drive belts or air intake areas. And what this does is displaces water and prevents rust, and this is particularly important in saltwater environments, but there's also some benefits in freshwater as well. And with the engine work done, I want to trim this motor down for storage so that it's in the vertical position. And what I mean by that is, if I look at the cavitation plate here, that's essentially level, and that ensures that any remaining water drains out. So about right there, that would be a vertical position. The last thing I want to address as part of winterization is battery power. You don't want to keep batteries in a freezing environment outside. So what I like to do is top them off first while in the boat using the onboard charger, and then remove the batteries and bring them into a warm and dry environment, which is usually in my house or heated garage. Different if you're down south, they can stay in the boat, but when you're looking at 0, 10, 20, 30 below conditions, batteries are susceptible to damage. So we run a mix at Wire to Fish of lead acid, AGM, and lithium iron phosphate batteries. So again, top them off, we remove them from the boat, and then what we do additionally is periodically charge them during the winter months while in storage. Just a couple top offs. If you're running lead acid batteries, pop the tops off and then take a look at the water level. If they appear low, pour some distilled water in the top to level them off. That's key to maintaining the longevity out of your lead acid batteries. And that concludes a basic winterization. Again, please refer to the Mercury website and YouTube channel for more information on specifics such as the full video on how to change your engine oil or gear lube, as well as any other maintenance questions you may have. And as always, refer to your engine manual for questions.